I became interested in German colonialism while writing The Last Imperialist, a biography of the British colonial governor Sir Alan Burns, published in 2021. As a young administrator in West Africa, Burns was sent into combat against neighboring German colonies when the Great War began in 1914. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the African natives fighting for Germany were tenacious and loyal. Native support for the Germans was so vigorous that the young Burns was taken out of the field and sent to British Lagos to recruit more soldiers. All this seemed puzzling to me because, having read what passes for scholarship on German colonialism, I believed that Africans, as well as the Arabs, Chinese, and Samoans, hated the Germans. But if that were so, then why did these peoples rally behind their German governors during the war? In East Africa, the natives did not lay down arms until word came that the fighting had ended in Europe. In West Africa, they followed their colonial masters into exile in neighboring Spanish territory and petitioned world leaders to restore Berlin's authority. Such stubborn facts are incomprehensible to the modern mind, trained as it is to think of European colonial rule as loathsome and unwelcome. My interest in this footnote to history caught the attention of colleagues in Germany, where calls to decolonize the country's understanding of its brief colonial era were running wild. The response to my talk revealed the suppurating sore of anti-colonial activism in Germany. Woke warriors in the city organized a protest outside the Reichstag building for black Berliners and their white supporters. The usual mesh of slogans about unrelated issues appeared. One had to notice the "Colonialism Kills" signboard to guess the focus of the evening's chanting. "There is no such thing as good colonialism," a young woman wailed into a bullhorn, demanding that my talk be canceled. I might have joined the protest to partake of the Christmas-spiced cookies, but feared that I might be decolonized in the resulting melee. In the media, meanwhile, prominent anti-colonial scholars in Germany denounced the talk and insisted that its contents be censored, lest any new ideas percolate into the public mind. "This is a conscious provocation," declared one prominent scholar. "It shows that the federal government has failed to make progress on this important issue of historical guilt, and instead allowed it to become a partisan issue up for debate." The Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung ran an article entitled "The AfD and German Colonial Era. Thanks for the oppression." German colonialism in Africa, the newspaper declaimed, is a story of cruelty, racism, and ruthless humiliation. This conclusion was beyond dispute, and any dissenting views were not to be taken seriously. Inside the building, we had a civilized, dare I say, colonial discussion. One AfD staffer, who is a native of Benin, rebuked the woke white youth outside the building for their arrogance in telling black and brown people what to think about colonial history. "All people in Africa know that what you say is true," the African man said to me at the gathering. "Germany has done a lot of good in Africa, so I want to thank you for your honest words." The talk cost me the friendship of a dear Jewish colleague in the United States who, despite his vast learning, fell easily for the charges that I was consorting with neo-Nazis and promoting Prussian militarism. Fortunately, the AfD had invited members of the press to the gathering, and their coverage suggested a growing fatigue with such nonsense. My talk was well received by the German public and became the basis for a German-language book, Verteidigung des deutschen Kolonialismus, in defense of German colonialism. In Germany, as elsewhere in the West, the educated public is broadly liberal, tolerant of competing views, and determined to uphold the Western heritage. It is rightly suspicious of the drivel that passes for academic history. As a result, my book is now used widely in independent high schools in Germany by teachers who engage in the daring feat of exposing their charges to more than one point of view. This revised and expanded English edition takes into account further research, as well as critical responses to the German book. It is twice as long as the German version, and significantly expands on the thesis that the termination of German colonialism was a major contributing factor to the rise of the Nazi horror in that country, and more generally laid the foundations for the series of illiberal movements in Germany that followed, first in the communist-inspired movements of the Cold War, and then in the debilitating woke activism of our days. All this, I argue, is critical to understanding the great hole that now stands at the center of Europe. Rebuilding Western civilization requires many hands. One of the most important of these will seize back an objective understanding of Germany's brief colonial era.